If you want to support our podcast financially, please visit patreon.com/IIMBSB. Also, email us with questions or ideas at imaypodcast@gmail.com. Today, we're interviewing one of my exes, activist and soon-to-be abolitionist lawyer, Jack Lyons, on their journey of identity, coming out, leaving behind a femme presentation, and eventually identifying as trans.
Welcome to If I May Be So Bold,
A podcast about relationships. I'm Dan Epstein, recording artist, Enneagram 4, and ADHD DJ.
I'm Justin Waring Crane, model, actress, singer, dancer, mathematician.
Mine is waking.
Ooh.
Like as in you're like woke? Like getting woke?
Whoa.
Dan's the wokest person
Okay,
I
Mr.
know.
Political. Okay, Mr. Buzzword. What's yours, Justin?
I feel restless. Like I would just like want to dive in, but I don't really know like where to start.
Yeah.
So I think I'm like, I have this weird thing that happens where I'm like, what would they do on Glennon Doyle's podcast? And I'm like, no. Like, so
Well, what would they do?
they just like, they come in so like prepared to each episode. And we sort of like, we're so like spontaneous and fun that we like just decided to do this episode yesterday. So I just want to come into it being like, it's going to be amazing. And it's going to be like, so fun for us. That's what I want it to be, is fun for us.
We've been recording for a while now, and I still listen back to the episodes when I edit them, and I'm like, why am I can hear that I feel pressure to laugh, that like I need to laugh. Like
I know what your pressured laugh sounds like. It's like,
and I end
you
up
kind of like push it out.
I end up editing it out, but I'm just like, maybe I'll stop doing that
One day.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good goal.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to interview you guys for a second.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Are we in trouble?
Yeah, you're about to be. Depends on how you answer. No. So welcome, Jack Lyons. Amazing to have you here. Jack and Dan, you guys used to date.
Mm-hmm.
So let's situate the listeners in a brief synopsis of you guys dating.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, when we dated, like that was you were like the last person I dated for any significant amount of time before Justin and I started dating. And I dated you longer than I dated anyone else in between my super long relationship and this relationship. But you popped up on my little Hinge. You had just moved to LA from Dallas.
I was like 1 week fresh.
Yeah. And you were living in a van.
True.
I was like, okay, this person, I was probably like, was I like 31, 32 maybe? And you were like 26?
Yeah,
I don't know,
right.
something around that. But I was like, okay, we're a little bit of different generations. I remember thinking.
Yeah. Situationally for me, I was like, damn, I don't know anyone in this city and I'm living in a van. That was silly. So Dan was my first friend.
Yeah.
Dan was the first Jewish person I ever met.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
That's explosive.
Right.
That's going to be the title of the episode.
Right in this point in the episode, like some really intense, like Jewish singing is going to come in. I'm going to edit it in.
Yeah, it was cool.
What did you know? What did you think about Jewish people at that time, or what associations did you have?
I didn't think anything.
Yeah.
No thoughts up in that brain. Dan was the last person I dated before I was gay. And yeah, I guess How long did we date for?
So I think we dated for like, a couple months, and then we broke up. Trying to remember when we broke up that first time. I think we were fighting. I'd never dated somebody who would just bring it to me, like so Aries.
Not avoiding conflict.
No. Yeah. And being like, when I did something and it triggered you, you would be like, that made me really upset, like really direct.
Yeah. Really
and that was interesting for me to deal with. And
if you didn't say interesting, what would you say?
It was challenging for sure. I felt challenged, but I also felt like it was cool because it was like, I could tell it was a good thing for me to experience, to be like, okay, my nervous system is like getting stressed out, but like we are able to get to a place of like a new understanding. And then we broke up for a few months, and then we got back together. But I think all in all, it was like between 5 and 6 months that we dated.
Okay.
And yeah, we had some really fun times. Some fights, some fun times. We did a really kind of hellish road trip in your van to Big Sur.
Oh my God, that was so bad. It was bad within like the first 20 minutes.
Oh,
no. It was really stressful.
How long was the road trip?
We only stayed one night on the road trip itself, I think, in Big Sur.
Makes sense.
But
within the first 20 minutes, that's
we were like on the freeway fighting.
Yep.
Car fights are so specific.
On a road trip.
Oh, yeah. You're like, here we go. We're trapped for 2 days.
It's interesting because dating you, I felt like I could feel that like I might have been like too sensitive of a person to date you at that time, at least. And I could feel that was like the incompatibility for me, was like in the relationship, I was feeling kind of bad about being sensitive. And I knew that like probably was not going to work for me, because it just is. Yeah. And I was also, what's interesting is when we broke up, it wasn't a situation where I was like, oh, we'll definitely be friends. I didn't necessarily feel that in the moment,
Yeah.
It felt like a kind of, tumultuous rupture.
It wasn't great.
Yeah. And then we went to hang out. We got lunch like a few months later, and you didn't have any animosity towards me. And you had a whole new community.
That's so interesting. I don't even remember this lunch. Where'd we go?
We went somewhere in like West Hollywood.
Oh.
Yeah. And you were like...
I was thinking like, how did we become friends after a not like super amicable breakup?
Mm-hmm. And now...
How did you guys don't really realize or know how you guys got to be friends again?
Well, I don't know. I think we weren't talking so much for a little while, and then we had lunch, and I think just like after a bit of time, we just started talking again. And then you lived with me briefly, a few years later. But like, you started coming to like some social things with your, at that time, girlfriend. And I feel like we have a friendship that is very like easy and fun for me now.
Yeah. I would agree.
After we got off the phone with you yesterday, we were like, God, they're so easy to talk to. We're so at ease with them. So like,
that's so nice.
It feels good.
Yeah, I feel the same. I wish I had a better memory of all of this. I think the thing that stood out to me the most about dating you, Dan, was that you were the first, as I said, Jewish person I'd ever met. No, you weren't doing the like, Justin, I don't know if you had this experience in Texas, but like the Christian man dating in Texas is just like a whole archetype of person. that
I've
in
only
some ways is like not, great. And in other ways, kind of allowed me to move through dating without taking a lot of responsibility for like my actions and my feelings. And I think I was a little bit of like a princess. I fully had these men like cooking me 3 meals a day and like driving me around and like planning all the dates and like doing the like pursuer role where I just kind of had to like show up and not even like I would get like picked up from my house.
That's nice.
And I feel like one of the first, I don't know if it was a fight, but in my mind it was a fight with myself, was Dan was always trying to make me drive to his house. And I was like,
Dan.
what the fuck is this about?
I mean, now we have a whole new episode. We're just going to talk about this. What the hell is that about, Daniel?
I think that was like my response to everything, like very normal, reasonable dating requests. I was like, what is chivalry dead? Like, I'm out here living in my van in West Hollywood and Dan lives in Silver Lake. And I was driving my entire house to go see this man. And I was like, this is crazy.
Yikes.
And I feel like Dan just had other like very reasonable things where he would prioritize himself as a person. And I was like, no. This is not how this works. I don't know if you remember any of these instances, like in the very beginning.
Can you think of one?
I don't know. I think I just was so used to like the gender role of being like a woman, like a girlfriend. And my experience of that was that I like didn't have to like do anything. And I feel like you don't really do gender roles that much in dating. And I was like, I don't understand how to do any other role. So if I can't do this one, I don't know how to participate here.
Yeah, that's really interesting to me. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I remember you telling me this, that just like the guys you had dated in Texas had been like, just jump at whatever. And you were able to kind of like not, I don't know. It just like, you didn't have to think about it too much or something. I don't know. I definitely remember something about that. But I remember you getting really mad at me about things that I was caught off guard about.
Like what?
I remember this one time where you were upset about something that had happened, not with me, like separate from me. And we were texting about it or something. And I was just like offered, like, I think I said like, take a few breaths or whatever. And you like hated that. You were like, I taught meditation at school. Like, don't tell me to breathe.
Yeah. I do not like being told what to do. Yeah.
Period.
It's a big issue. Yeah. No, someone I'm dating told me to take a breath earlier this week. And I was like, what the fuck did you just say to me? So that's the through line. I didn't actually say that. Like, I've learned like a bit of like fucking self-control to not say everything I'm thinking. But it did rub me the wrong way. And I was like, why am I getting so mad that this person told me to breathe?
I have a real trigger around authority. I don't know if it's similar for you in that I think it comes from being raised in the church. And it's just so like, because of being so controlled and monitored through that authority and being told what to do, it just feels really bad to me, really stifling.
Oh, I hadn't made that connection of like religious trauma aspect of hating authority. Obviously, I hate all forms of authority, perceived or real. And even when people are being helpful, like if you offer me help that I don't want, it's game over.
Wow. That's really good to know.
It's not great.
Well, kind of going from the gender role thing, part of why we wanted to talk to you is because I am just really interested to know more and to like have people hear about kind of what your experience from where you started when you moved to LA and before in like your mid-20s till now, when you have so much about your life and like your priorities and like even the way you look like has changed. And part of what's interesting to me about that is like, from knowing you, there's certain things that, you know, you were praised for and given attention for that you had, as like a very femme appearing, you know, blonde, long haired blonde person, coming from Texas, that you decided like, not for me, this isn't me. So I would just like love to hear you talk about kind of, I know you said you have bad memory, but do your best.
Don't tell her what to do. Them what to do.
Yeah. So, I mean, what's like the first thing that comes to mind when I bring this up?
Can you be more specific?
Yeah, sure. Well, okay. So like kind of continuing my thread. So certain things that like you were praised for, given attention for, and other things that you were kind of limited or put in a box for. So I guess maybe let's let the question be, are there specific moments you had like in LA before or after like we broke up that you felt like the door opening up to kind of what your identity might evolve into?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, I think I was kind of blindsided by my identity. Like I wasn't like really marinating on like, who am I? Like what is my gender? What is my sexuality? Like I feel like it kind of just happened to me in a weird way. And I think moving out of Texas to a city where I didn't know anyone opened up the possibility that I could be like my own person without having to report to anyone. Like no one's gonna really know like what I look like or dress like on a day-to-day basis. No one's gonna know who I'm going on dates with. So I think there was just some freedom there of like, I'm not gonna run into people from my old church. I'm not gonna be like accountable to like a past version of myself that people have to adjust to. And I think that was amplified during the pandemic when I didn't have to go into schools anymore.
For work.
A huge part of like feeling trapped in my identity as a femme was that I work in pretty conservative schools, where you're like a miss or a mister. So I would go into these schools and be called Miss Lyons and would have to dress the part of like pure, innocent, sweet teacher. And obviously I'm a fucking demon, so that didn't sit well with me.
That is so layered too, because how teachers are like mammified or like defanged, you know, and like desexualized. They're like not just supposed to appear, you know, feminine and sweet and innocent, but also like asexual too.
Yeah.
Just so like uncomfortable.
Yeah. I think that was like a huge part of like, I think you asked like what opened the possibility or opened the door, and just like working from home without having to see anyone. It's like the big thing for me.
Yeah.
I think the timing of the pandemic was also the timing of my first gay breakup. And in that relationship, I don't know. I guess we were like, I'm like, was I a lesbian? Not really. I was bi. But dating a person who's also now non-binary. At the time, it was like a very like femme butch dynamic, and I got a lot of attention in that relationship in the same way that I did from men, and that I was praised for being femme. Like I was praised for like my makeup, my outfits, my hair, the whole like bit of being a femme woman. And that was comfortable. Like it was a nice like ease into queer dating because I knew how to be a femme. I've been a femme my entire life. I already had everything. Like I knew the role, I knew the bit. And the girl that I was dating had been a butch lesbian for like years and years. And so she also knew the role of like kind of the boyfriend role. Like she would drive and pick me up for our dates. And I was like, perfect. This is what I like. So in some ways, and she definitely was the pursuer. And so I was like, well, this is like super easy because I've been here before. But I think part of the tension in that relationship was that the more I came to like understand myself as a person and not as like a role, I felt pretty trapped in that role in the relationship. And maybe it was because it was like a form of authority that I didn't want to deal with. But it definitely made me feel a bit trapped in the same way I felt trapped in like straight relationships where, especially in Texas, where I had to perform like the role of like the sweet teacher girlfriend. I don't know.
Yeah.
So we broke up first week of pandemic. I was like, time to shave my head. Let's go, baby.
What was the last thing you said?
Time to shave my head.
Oh, I remember that. I remember that day.
So what did it feel like when you considered like the idea that you didn't have to perform femme anymore? How did that feel, like that possibility?
It was terrifying because I didn't know how else I would get attention. Like it was the only thing I'd really gotten attention for. And it's the only thing I knew how to do. And I didn't have any friends like in my queer community that were, or I guess had this experience of like doing the whole like high femme bit and then kind of moving into more mask or androgynous like presentation. So I didn't have a clear like roadmap of like what to do. Like when you're like a teenage girl, there's like a million things that teach you how to be a teenage girl and like what to wear and how to do your makeup and whatever. So I think the biggest thing I was feeling was like fear that no one would find me attractive anymore. Fear that I didn't know how to do it. Like there wasn't like rules. I remember being on like the ASOS website in the men's section. It's 2020 March. And I'm like just ordering everything. And I'm like, I don't know what size I am in this. I don't know what this is going to look like on my body. Like, I don't know that anyone could be attracted to me wearing only men's clothing with a buzz cut. But it felt worth investigating to me to see how I felt. And not being in a relationship allowed me, I guess, the freedom to explore that without having to think about what someone else is going to think about me.
Yeah. I'm hearing this and I'm just like, wow, because I'm picturing you alone buying these clothes on ASOS and how much your life had changed from what I know it was like a couple years prior, which was like you were in Dallas working in education and you were like a part of this community of young people who all were part of like a church community and we're all like coupled up for the most part, and how that must have felt to like, you know, see where you had come from and like where you now were and like what you were delving into.
Yeah. I think the people were surprised as well.
Yeah. Were you like, how was it for you to like think about them seeing pictures of you or like hearing about these changes? Like those people who had known you at such a different moment.
It helped a lot that I knew I would have time before anyone would like find out what I looked like. because the pandemic. And I knew that I had control over what people could see like on social media. So I didn't have to take that into account like too much. And the people that I am close with in Texas, or was at the time, I knew would accept me and would like think it's cool. And that wouldn't be an issue. And the people who wouldn't, I don't have to deal with. Like I don't have to see like my old boss, or like I don't have to deal with like the education world. And even the friends, like my close friends, my coworkers, have been like nothing but supportive. Like once I posted pictures of me on Instagram, like the majority of people who commented were my coworkers from Texas who were like, and friends who were like very supportive and like allies, which was cool to like any fears that I had were pretty like squished pretty immediately with the support that I did get.
When you let go of that and I mean, that's so scary. Like you said, terrifying. You're like really like in the wilderness being like, I don't know what the fuck this is going to be like. And like you said, like, am I going to be attractive? And like, it's just of course, then what happened was you're like, oh yeah, I'm so attractive, but in this like totally different way. And did you have a experience or moment where you like felt that for the first time with someone when you had like shed that femme presentation and you were like, whoa, I'm like, yeah, I'm so hot, but in a different way now?
Yeah, I think it took a couple years of feeling like really ugly and also knowing that I would rather feel ugly than be a version of myself that is fake. And I feel like that's like the Aries mentality.
Yeah.
Like, I will endure this.
Yeah.
And I experienced more rejection in dating than I have in my entire lifetime, which is mostly because I'd never experienced rejection in my entire lifetime.
Yeah.
And it was just like, like hit after hit for a while of these girlies leaving me for their straight ex-girlfriends, which
dang, ugh,
was a lot.
Ouch.
Lesbians in LA just love straight girls. Like they love them. They can't get enough of them.
Interesting.
So I'm curious. Yeah. So straight girls who date women or date no.
Just straight girls.
But they were leaving you for the straight girls?
Yep. Happened 3 times in a row, baby. I can name names. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, drop some names.
Yeah. It's like a whole thing of like, obviously straight girls look femme because they're doing like the gender role of being a girl. And so a lot of the like butch lesbians that I was interested in were only interested in other femmes. And so as I was like shedding my femininity, I think it was really challenging them and what they were attracted to. And the conclusion was that it wasn't me. And that I think was pretty like, okay, I have this fear that no one's going to find me attractive. And then people are leaving me for their like femme crush who was also a straight girl.
Right.
Who's like more so to offer.
He's like more emblematic of the thing I'm leaving behind.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, I've done that bit before and I can do it. I did it very well. I excelled even.
Yeah. Yeah, you did.
So I'm like, this is like, damn, like I could have,
That's so brutal to be like, I'm scared this thing is going to happen. And guess what? Like it does a bunch of times, but then you're like, oh, and I'm fine ultimately, but still like so painful.
Yeah. You were saying that since moving to Oakland, like you've noticed how different it is and that in LA, people do still subscribe much more to like traditional femme masc dynamics, which makes sense to me because like, we don't live in like Hollywood or West Hollywood or Beverly Hills, but like still you like can feel here that like being like young, hot, skinny is some like an intensity about like the power that can give you. in LA.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, I don't know. It's really interesting to me because I felt like coming out in LA was so easy. Like it was so good because I had an idea one day that I could be bi, and then I changed my Tinder settings, and then in like a week I had 2 girlfriends, and I was like, this is sick. I'm also poly now. But I think that was also like my like femme long blonde hair era where like nothing about the world really changed. I just was dating women. And it looked the same too. Like the relationships were very similar. And I think once that dynamic became less interesting to me because I didn't want to be a femme anymore. Yeah, there was that like weird period of rejection. And then I moved back into a van and fled the state of California, was in Atlanta. And
I forgot about that.
Yeah, like that time during Atlanta, I was like sort of working, but only on Zoom. So like I still didn't have to like go into schools really. And I knew that I was going to start law school soon. So I knew that I was like permanently leaving this education world, and I could like really go all in on like what I want to look like. And I didn't have any language around like trans discourse to describe what was happening as transition. I think I was just like really silly, not thoughtful, wearing men's clothing for like 2 years. And I was like, this is what I do now. And moving to Oakland, my first friend here was someone that I was going on dates with in LA's other person that they were going on dates with, who chaotically I added on Instagram and started hitting on them and their DMs. And that was silly. So I met up with them once I moved here, and they're trans, non-binary, and just had kind of words for everything that I had been experiencing that I understood to be a sort of change or a sort of transformation, but I hadn't identified as transition. Because what I understood about transition is you like have to have some gender affirming surgery. You have to be on hormones. You have to like jump through these hoops to like become a man to be trans. And I think what I learned from the trans community in Oakland is that like, okay, it's like the Barbie movie where she's like, I didn't know I had to ask for permission to be a human. I just am. I was like, trans allegory right there. I didn't have to like start on T or have top surgery or anything to like become trans. Like I just like am. And it's not a journey that I have to like do tasks to like complete or to get anywhere. It just means that like the gender that I was assigned at birth is in opposition to how I feel about myself, and to who I am. And so understanding myself as trans, I think was the first step to like having a positive experience with my gender presentation. Mostly because I started hanging out with a lot of other trans people and hearing about their experiences and their journeys and meeting a lot of other trans non-binary people that helped me understand myself, impacted the way that I was dating people. Like I kind of only wanted to date other trans people who would understand that like I'm not a butch lesbian, like I'm not a mask presenting girl, like I'm not like a she they that nothing against she theys. I'm not a she they that like is a they sometimes and a she other times. Like I'm just trans all the time, and I need to be in relationship with people that do not see me as like woman like, because I think a lot of people see non-binary as like, oh, but like you're like AFAB, right? Like you're like a woman, right?
AFAB?
Assigned female at birth.
Assigned female at birth.
Okay.
So, and that's like the tone of that is like, but you're really a woman. So Like,
yeah, like you're like lesbian specific. You're like, but you're like one of us, right? And
yeah.
Between
like,
me and
no.
you.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So do you look at it in chapters? Like, was it like, okay, first I was bi/pan, and then that was one chapter, or not so much?
Kind of. I guess the bigger chapter is more about how I want to be perceived instead of who I am dating. Like, I'm pretty open to dating any gender as long as I'm perceived as trans non-binary. And that means, I guess, a lot of the people that I date are also trans. So, like, I don't know that there's really a good word for that. I guess it's homo in some ways because it's like same, like trans for trans, like T for T is what I have on like all my dating apps because I want to be in relationship to people that see my gender. Not that like cis people can't like see and understand my gender fully.
Yeah.
I'm not like limiting
Right.
myself or others in that way, but I think it's more important than like the gender that I'm interested in is like the gender that I'm perceived as.
So it's like there's kind of like a more of an assuredness or comfort in dating trans people that's just like more understood or more like likely to be understood.
Yeah, and I think it has a lot to do with how I feel. Like I felt like hot again for the first time dating other trans people. And I've had such like euphoric experiences that it's hard to imagine having with people that haven't transitioned or haven't like gone from one thing to another, which can be true in ways outside of gender. But I think that like overlapping experience does a lot for me. Like it's like it connects me to people.
Yeah.
In a big way.
Yeah, that seems so powerful. Like it's like such a huge thing to have experienced.
Yeah, it's also funny because then you can send like pictures of like past selves.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah.
With like, yeah, it's fun. Like, look at this, LOL. Can you believe it?
Right. That's really fun. Whoa, yeah. Dang. Okay. I know what I want to talk about next.
Go off.
You were talking about something, I don't know if this is like a process that you're going through lately, but finding joy in relationships without attachment distress. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah. Well, I'm not an attachment expert. I barely believe in it, but I do think part of my struggles in relationship comes from the expectations I have for romantic partners, stemming all the way back to like high school boyfriends in Texas and the gender roles there and all of that I still have so much work to do. And when those expectations aren't met, my tendency is still exactly what Dan was describing. Like if something rubbed me the wrong way or triggered me, like I want to immediately have it resolved. I don't want to sit with the feeling. I don't want to think about where it's coming from. I want it to be fixed. And that, let me tell you, does not work in relationships.
I can relate to that.
You heard it here first.
And I think my dating pattern is that I'm only interested in people when it's sort of like a mutual obsession type of love where you're just like goo goo gaga hard eyes about each other all the time, like texting 24/7, trying to squeeze each other into each other's calendars as often as possible, which inevitably leads to like a roller coaster relationship, whirlwind romance, and those don't go super well for me. So I think what I'm trying to be open to is forming connections with people that are fulfilling, that are not centered around the idea of like being partners. Like I don't want to only have valuable relationships with people that I'm in like a couple with. Like I want to be open to different dynamics outside of like a super intense romantic relationship to see what needs I can have met outside of like the universe of like traditional dating. Which just does feel very possible in the Bay Area. Like the poly community out here is like amazing. Like there's so much space to have different types of connections with people. And in my experience, like people here are very open about just like talking honestly about what you have to offer, what you're interested in, and seeing if it matches up.
That's cool.
Yeah. And so I've had some cool experiences dating here that have not looked like past relationships in ways that are not comfortable for me, but I think are maybe healthy for me, at least while I'm like healing the patterns I have in dating that like aren't working for me.
Yeah. That's cool. It makes me think of like, there's been times with my coaching clients when people are having anxiety around dating, or like dating is stressful, or have like unpleasant experiences from their dating past that they're, wary of, that like having people kind of try and remember or focus on things that you can, reasons why you would want to go on dates or like meet people outside of like where like ending up at some particular partnership, like end goal, like that there actually are many things that can come from meeting people and like going out like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I've always known that in theory. And so many of my close friends I met on dating apps and pretty quickly were like, okay, this is like only going to be platonic. And that's been awesome because I feel like I have a lot of queer community from that. And those relationships are like really fulfilling to me, but are also very separate in my mind from romantic or sexual relationships. Like I'm not a person that enjoys flirting with my friends, although that's very common in the queer community. It's like kind of a hard boundary for me. Like if you're my friend, you're my friend. And that's like a comfort safe box because I don't experience any attachment distress in friendships. I don't worry about friends leaving me. I don't have to like have the anxiety I have in romantic relationships and friendships. So that's a nice little safe bubble. But I think my dating experience still is not as, I want to use the word liberated. I don't think that's right. I guess like unwinded, detached from like my like childhood trauma.
Yeah.
Like
or like
it's just
childhood notions too.
Yeah. Like it's just like embarrassing sometimes to be dating and like see all of your like childhood trauma coming up and like also being powerless to like control it.
It is. It can be really embarrassing, even though it's like so normal and like so like kind of couldn't go any other way. It just does feel sort of like embarrassing. Yeah. When he talked about the poly community being pretty explicit about like, here's what I have to offer, I really liked that. What is that? Could you give an example of what someone might say is like, here's what I offer like in relationship?
Yeah. I think there's different like buckets of things people are interested in. I guess I can start at one end and go to the other end. I think a lot of poly people in the Bay are like non-hierarchical. So they will have a bunch of different partners, but there's not like a primary, a secondary, or like less serious casual partners. It's like everyone kind of has their own unique relationship, and there's not like any preference given to one partner over the other. I call bullshit on this. I think it's fake. I think there's always a hierarchy. I think at the end of the day, someone's your emergency contact if someone's not.
Yeah.
You're either
I
going to
agree.
move in with someone or you're not. Like there's life decisions that end up having to be made around partnerships. So I don't think that's real. What I do like about this is that it gives each relationship the space to grow into whatever it could be. Whereas like a hierarchical polydynamic where like, say, the person you're living with is your primary partner, that just limits any other relationships that you can have in a way that for me, I find it comforting. And for others, it can be, I guess, like annoying. I love being people's secondary partner because it means I'm basically like a celebrity guest. I don't do all of the like big relationship stuff. Like I'm not moving in with anybody. And it just is like very fun and clear to like know what my role is there. I guess I really like roles. And so people could say on a dating app, like looking for a primary partner or have a partner I live with, looking for like more casual partners, all the way to like only interested in like platonic connections or only interested in like kink community. So people can say like specifically what things they're looking for within like the kink universe of options too. And that can be a totally separate type of relationship than romantic or sexual.
Yeah.
And it also could be all of them. So there's just like a wide range of things that are possible. And I think for a lot of poly people that I have met, everything starts off on the table. And then as you get to know each other, you kind of figure out like more relationship anarchy wise, like what things do you want to keep on the plate? What things do you want to take off? What like makes sense for us now? And also knowing like that could change in a month, that could change in 6 months. And it's like a more fluid thing as opposed to like, you are my primary partner. You'll be my primary partner in 6 months and no one else is going to ever be your primary partner again.
Yeah. I like that. It's much more responsive, I think. And like, you know, flexible and allowing for like, you know, life, you know, you're responding to what's unfolding in your life. So I like that.
Yeah.
Cool.
So are you not really looking for a primary partner at this moment?
I'm definitely open to it if like that's where a relationship seems to be going. I don't know that I will ever want to commit to a relationship with someone at the cost of kind of what Justin's saying, like not being responsive. Like I'm not going to do the relationship escalator that like you get to the top and then you're just at the top. Like I always want there to be some flexibility with either escalating things more or de-escalating things based off of how it's going or what you have the capacity for.
I really like that.
Yeah.
I don't know that I desire a primary partner right now. So I don't think I'm going into dates hoping or expecting that to happen. Yeah.
Do you find yourself when you're like messaging or like arranging a date, what kind of role, how would you describe the role you're taking on? Are you tending to be the one like trying to make things happen, or you tend to be like more deferring to people pursuing you, or does it really depend?
It really depends, which I like and I kind of like need. That's like one role that I feel less attached to, of like being, I don't know, like being the pursuer all of the time feels a little forced. Like that not every person I talk to on a dating app I want to like rush to meet up with. But there are times where I do feel more urgently and excited about someone where I will like work to make it happen. I guess it depends on the person and how interested I am. That sounds bad.
No, I mean, that
I'm
resonates.
like, if you pursued me, it's because I wasn't interested.
It's normal though. And sometimes like, and it can shift. It's like sometimes you're like not interested, but then they start pursuing you and then you like kind of like, you're like, oh, whoa, I actually am more into you. And then kind of shifts into you pursuing more. So
I know.
Cat and mouse. Ever heard of it? We're cutting that.
I definitely want to ask, like, in that period when you were like delving into this great unknown, like what was really helpful for you? Like, what did you find supportive, or what would you say to people who are maybe in that space now?
That's a good question. I think it helped a lot that I just had pretty built-in queer community to like hype me up when I needed it. And I don't think that I necessarily believed them. Like when I was like, oh, I'm ugly and everyone's rejecting me. And my friends were like, no, you're hot. I wasn't like, oh my God, you're so right. But I think having people who will say the thing that you need to hear when you need to hear it is helpful. And I think that applies to like every type of transition you could go through in life. And just like being in community with other people who have done the thing that you're doing, to be able to like see it and identify it and maybe tell you what's happening, and give you some like hope of like, not that like it's going to be okay, it's going to work out in the end, but just like, oh, like there's a future for people like me, and that future is like a good one.
Yeah, like what it might be leading to.
Yeah.
And
I just like moved to Oakland. Like if you're trans, just like move to Oakland.
If possible, yeah.
Who did you say was on the top of the gay food chain in Oakland?
I feel like, skinny white trans mask people.
Whereas in LA?
In LA, what is it?
LA, like skinny femme, probably.
Yeah.
Lucky
Sounds familiar.
Did them both.
What about in New York? Do we know?
I have no idea. Weird. Quirky.
Weird and artsy girls.
I don't know.
Or
I went on a date with a clown from New York last week. So
whoa.
Yeah. Clown
Was it fun?
It was like pretty mid.
Okay, cool. I hope they listen to this.
I hope so too. Ooh, it was great. It was a good time.
Cool. Thanks for talking to us.
Thank you so much. And that's our show. Thanks for joining us. Our music is by Nightlight. We self-produce this podcast, so please subscribe, rate, and review. It really helps.